Because you're going to run into one of two things. Either you have to stop answering that personal phone when they call, or you have to have a conversation about some kind of shift in communications. Either way, it's not ideal. Hello and welcome to the Service-Based Business Society podcast. I am your host, Tiffany-Ann Bottcher. If you are ready to scale your success, grow your business, and live that entrepreneurial life, click subscribe because we're about to get started. Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today we are talking about business boundaries. I know that boundaries are always such a sensitive topic, and so much so that some of our most popular episodes of the first couple of seasons talked about boundaries in a couple of different ways. But typically they really talked about that person-to-person boundary and not so much business boundaries. And so I had a couple of situations come up in the last couple of weeks that just really made me think, hey, I think this is a really relevant topic right now. As you grow, here's the thing, we're all growing all the time. Sometimes in the right direction, sometimes not, but we are all growing. We just are going to call it, to me, growing is always like bigger, more educated, more intelligent, more something. But sometimes when it comes to boundaries, it's actually about clawing it back. And I think that that is the tricky piece. I often talk about setting up businesses the way that it needs to be in the end from the start. There's things that you do when you are a small startup that you can't do when you are big. We've talked about it on previous episodes. Your business gets bigger. It's kind of like a ship. So when you start, your business is very small, more like a speedboat. You can turn quickly, you can go, you can stop, you can change it up. In the great words of Mr. Ross from Friends, you can pivot very quickly. As your business grows, you become less and less able to do things like that. It becomes bigger. It becomes a ferry where it's just going one direction, big turns. Then it goes into a cruise ship, then a freightliner. As the business gets bigger, you can do less and less maneuvering. But that also means that everything else changes. So if you are setting things up with a very small look into the future, sometimes as we grow, we have to claw things back. And this is one of the reasons why I say, hey, that's not sustainable from the start. So one of the most common areas, and this isn't necessarily a boundary specific thing, but one of the things that an example of things that shift as you get bigger, so often when businesses start running payroll, they have a very small holdback window. So oftentimes we see that the hours, payday is Friday, and that means that it includes everything up to Thursday at midnight on the Friday check. In fact, some businesses even include the Friday. And if people's hours need to be forecasted, people are like, well, it includes up to Friday. And then if someone doesn't show up, then we adjust it on the next check, or all of these adjustments. That gets really tricky when it comes to direct deposit because usually it has to be posted to the bank ahead of when you would have at one time cut a paycheck. Now, as a business gets bigger, that process takes longer, especially if there's some kind of hour review process. So now if your whole team is on salary and it's the same every paycheck, then you probably don't have much to worry about. But if you are reviewing things like commissions, if you are reviewing hours, if you need to make sure, if you have to collect up timesheets or something like that, then you need more time. Especially because you need to be calculating and making sure that vacation pay is correct and sick pay and all of these different remittances and all that. If you have half a day to do it, and you might say, it only takes me 3 hours. But if you have one day to do it in 1 3-hour block, what happens if you are sick? What happens if you have a meeting? What happens if that 3-hour block does not become available to you? Now you're scrambling to get it done. Now, many years ago, I was running payroll, and this was very early on in my career, and I had committed, I said, no matter what, I will get it done. And this is one of these things where there was not a lot of wiggle room. And unfortunately, my son he was in the hospital for 10 days or so, and I had my laptop, and I will never forget the moment that I laid on the hospital hallway trying to find enough Wi-Fi to process payroll because it needed to be done in that exact moment or that team would not be paid. There's something about that was long before any kind of bookkeeping, payroll service agency, anything like that. I'm at the hospital, I'm doing these things, and it just needed to get done. The Wi-Fi signal was not great, and I'm trying to post it to the bank. That's a level of stress. So here's the thing. Let's look at that. Let's break down that situation. Number one, let's talk about boundaries. What is a boundary? Well, a boundary really is, what are you willing to do for money? Now, referencing 2024, I feel like the world has gone a shift of what people are willing to do for money. You hear about the most random things online. People in their feet videos, their OnlyFans, whatever. There's lots of different ways to make money in 2024. I'm not here to judge any of those things. I'm just saying, what is a boundary? Truly it is, what are you willing to do? And so if we look and we would say, well, back then, I felt like I needed to do that job because if I didn't do that job, I could potentially lose that job. So I would never want to say, I cannot process the payroll and say, hey, we're going to have to find someone else to do it. I just said, of course, I will get that done. So that was my boundary or lack thereof at that time. Now, many years later, I still at times lack boundaries, but it's almost intentional. There's a lot of talk in the business space, in the online space, by some really talented people. I saw a post just day before yesterday, scrolling social media, and it was really it was the final. I was thinking about this podcast episode. I already had a couple of boundaries things on the mind, and this post really made me think about it. It was a business owner saying that he has set some very firm boundaries and he does not ever bend them. So in his example, he says he works Monday to Friday, 9 to 3 on his business. If there is anything outside of that, it's a no. He does not travel for business. He does not attend training outside of those. He does not meet with people outside of those. He very specifically works between 9 and 3, Monday to Friday. That is it. Now, as someone who works lots of different hours, I find this peculiar. I think that's not feasible, but that is what's important to him. That's what he's willing to do. And so it's not right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just a different boundary level than I have. Now, I work often late at night. I do so by choice. If you follow along in the podcast, I choose to be there for certain family events, certain times for my kids, etc. And I just know that I'll make that time up later. So it's not that I work any less hours by deciding that I'm going to be there to pick my kids up from school. It just means that I'm going to work different hours. And I will say, to this day, I believe it's been over 4 years since I left the corporate space. To this day, I start work at 9. I can't not start work at 9. I don't know how to not do it. In my mind, when I left the corporate world, I had this fantasy, I realize it is now, that I was going to get up, I was going to take my kids to school, I was going to work out, and then I was going to work. In actual application, that does not work. And here is why. I live in the Pacific Standard Time Zone, and we have clients all over North America. Pacific Standard Time Zone, we are on the far west coast. We are in the last time zone. So we have clients already that have been working for 3 hours before I even start. I always feel like I'm late. Even though we set meetings, I don't mean I'm late for a specific time, but I feel behind. They've already started. So now I think, well, if I started working out at 9 and then I did my workout by the time I showered and got soon I'm showing up at lunchtime. It doesn't work. This didn't work in application. I still, in my mind, think maybe it's possible, but it really isn't. There are many people that then get up and work out before the day, before their kids get up. I know that this not going to be me. Sometimes we have these things that don't necessarily work out and we have to change the plan. Boundaries are not a plan. That's really where the distinction here is. Boundaries on a short-term basis should not be changing. They do change and evolve over time. Talked about things as your business grows, your boundaries will change, but not as much as a plan. The boundaries should only change as you evolve. It should not change because you gave up on it. If you have decided you are willing or not willing to do something, you're really kind of committed to that. And there is some personal accountability because as a business owner, you don't really report to anyone. So if you choose to either follow through on the boundary or not follow through on the boundary, the only person who really deals with that is you. So, but let's talk a little bit about those boundaries and the ones that will shift over time. So, a lot of times people start out their business and they are using their personal mobile device. They answer the phone, they answer text at all hours. Maybe it's from team, maybe it's from clients, maybe it's from other vendors, whatever it is. That personal phone is attached to your hand or your pocket or whatever all the time, and you are constantly available. It's really two pieces, the constantly available and the personal phone number. So let's break those down into two different things. The personal phone number is one of the hardest things to claw back. And so I always say don't give it in the first place because clawing things back is very challenging. So if you have a business that operates on a short life cycle, it's actually much easier to claw things back because you don't have the same people. If you are in a long-term business cycle relationship, well, that means that you might have a customer for several years. And so if you gave them your personal phone number on day one, and now on day 300, you decide, actually, I don't want you to have my personal number anymore, that's hard. Because you're going to run into one of two things. Either you have to stop answering that personal phone when they call, or you have to have a conversation about some kind of shift in communications. Either way, it's not ideal. So most business owners just don't do it. So as they evolve, as they change, everybody new deals with the office number or whoever the new way of doing it is. And there will always be some residual people who call the cell phone. There will always be some residual people that still call that cell phone. I'm guilty of it. And more, not so much the phone calls, but the texts. And so actually recently, this is one of the, there I am, it's a Sunday, and someone is texting me that is no longer a current client. They are a former client. They are texting me on a Sunday because they are concerned about a spam message that they have received. They're not sure if it's spam. They're not sure if it's not. And now they're reaching out to me to ask, is this legit? Is this spam? What should I be doing with it? And I'm standing in my kitchen thinking, I don't want to answer this on a Sunday. But my personal guilt prevents me from just ignoring it. This person is in stress. They are in distress their stress about potential scams. So I answer it. I answer the question. And I just want to say that person did not even say thank you. And I had a moment of bitterness because I knew that my boundary should have been don't reply on a Sunday. Just wait and reply on the Monday. It wasn't that I was going to ignore that person. It was a business message. Although it came into a personal channel, this is a business message and I could just respond. When that person did not say thank you and I felt bitter about it for a moment, I thought, but the only person who really is at fault here is myself, because had I not responded, had that person sent that other message back on a Monday, I probably would have been less bitter about it. That is a boundary. I chose to break my own boundary, was unhappy with the situation that followed. It's really my own fault. I had another situation. It was in a mastermind type program, and someone was saying, this client kept texting me early in the morning and, got back to them. And I said, I don't work on Sunday. I can't be responding to you. And the other business owner, whose business to business relationship, said, that's fine. I do work on Sunday. And so I'm sending these to you in my working hours. And so you can get back to me in your working hours. I didn't say, please respond to me right now. I did not indicate it was an emergency. And I believe this is the work number. And the other business said, well, yes. But I saw the message come in and then I needed to answer it. And I just wanted to let you know that you can't message me on Sundays because I don't work on Sundays. That entire situation really bruised that business relationship. And there was a lot of, always say right, wrong, or indifferent. We have to be committed to our piece. So if you're not going to answer the phone on Sunday, then don't answer the phone on Sunday. Perhaps set up a system. Go back to the systems of business, voicemail, auto text back, vacation responder on the email, whatever that is, whatever system you're going to use, you always just want to, one is the customer, contactor in this case, taken care of? Yes. Is the boundary protected? Yes. Don't give the farm at the beginning on things that you cannot sustain. But the caveat to that is what each business owner wants to sustain long-term is different. And that is okay. That is the boundary discussion that we need to have, is that some people don't mind answering on a Sunday. Some people don't mind answering in the evening. I will say that I don't know very many real estate agents that would say, I work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and I don't respond outside of that. Because the fact is, that industry exists outside of that. I remember at one point selling a house, and we were signing papers it was late. And the realtor from representing the purchaser, he was not super electronic savvy. He was driving to me to get it signed, my husband and I, and then he was driving to the other people. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and he's driving around town getting all these signatures. I mean, I could help here, but at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, like, he knows that if he wants to get that deal done, it's going to happen when it's going to happen. He's okay with that. Other business owners really say, case of the one I was mentioning there, 9 to 3, Monday to Friday, 0 exceptions. And that's okay. Where we run into some trouble there is you just have to remember that these are the type of people. And so while other business owners may be cheering him on in the comments saying, gosh, like, love that. I wish I could do that. Like, I guess I could, but like, you are doing business with this person and you feel like, hey, I actually like to do my business at 5 p.m. He might not be the business to work with for you. These are the types of things that we really have to realize up front, because you don't want to be in a situation where you feel that person should be existing outside of their boundaries. You're destined to fail. That relationship is destined to fail. So, personal phone, hard to claw back and so easy to replace. So one of the things that we do in our business, we use Go High Level. Go High Level is an amazing CRM system. It does different things, but one of the things it does is it have the ability to add a business phone number. And from that number, you can text, you can phone, they can phone you, and it all comes into an app. You're still getting it on your mobile device, but it is through the business number. So why is this great? Well, number one, all of that information is going into your CRM. So you can tell that X has called on Tuesday, client X has called on Friday, they left this voicemail. It's all in the customer record. It's not muddled in with pictures from grandma and, to the kid's teacher and this and that. It's two separate things. Less likely to miss things, easier to scale with a team because the communication is in one place. It also means that you can turn on things like autoresponders and missed call text back and AI chatbot response for text, these types of things, even if it's only to say, thank you for contacting us. We are currently closed and we'll get back to you on Monday morning. If this is an emergency, we do offer, hours emergencies, reply urgent and a team member will be available, so charges will apply. At least then you're upfront. You've said, hey, we're currently closed. I'm totally happy to talk to you, but you're going to pay me more. Then the person can decide. There's lots of different options. It's not an automatic yes. It's not an automatic no. Sometimes it's about fine tuning it to get it how you like. Okay. There was a conversation going on recently in a Facebook community, and someone is the vendor, and they're basically saying, customer bought package A and it does only include one planning call. But this customer keeps calling and asking, can't make a decision and we're planning and I don't know what to do because I just I'm burning hours. I don't want to do this anymore. This was the big question. And she said, do I just need to let the client go? And there were lots of discussions back and forth. Some people who erred on the side of this person is pushing your boundaries, get rid of them. I leaned on the side of, well, that doesn't sound very profitable because now you've already spent all of the hours dealing with all of the things and you're going to give the money back. As a business, this is not a great financial decision, but we have to respect the boundaries. So instead, my response was, in this particular case, is asking, what do I reply? And so lots of people had put in their replies, and my reply, necessarily verbatim, but was basically like, hey, I understand that decisions are difficult. I'm happy to help you plan. We do offer additional planning sessions. If you'd like, I can send over the booking link in order to book one of those sessions. And if not, no worries, don't stress. Let me know when you've made a decision. This allowed a upsell on the additional call because I'm not. And, it said, hey, if you don't want my help, no, you don't want to pay anything, no problem. Just let me know when you're ready. We don't just need to, sometimes it's those minor adjustments, right? You have to decide, what are we willing to do? But I think that oftentimes we immediately, and it comes back to that comment of, I felt a little bitter. When we are bitter, we respond in a not great way. Bitter is emotion-based. It's not business-based. Bitter belongs on that emotional shelf. Now, it's not to say that we can't run our business with some emotions. Obviously, we use emotions to drive the passion, to drive the hustle, to drive all these things. It's only natural that we also feel them in other ways. But sometimes we have to take that step back and think, if I was the employee working for, and pretend now you're the boss, and what would I say? What would I want that person to do? Because here's where we lack accountability as business owners. If we say, I don't want to do it, I don't like it, feels uncomfortable, I don't want to do it, no one's going to say, give it a try. You should do it. It's the best part. You do what you want, but it's also a challenge. You have to have discipline to still do the things that are uncomfortable, to still be, to do these things, but within your boundaries. And see how the boundaries guide. They really do say, they're almost kind of that core set of, yes, I'll do it. No, I won't. It comes back to funny analogy, but, are people in film. Some people who film, put their top off. Some people don't. That's do or you don't. There has to be a decision. There has to be a boundary. So you have to set your boundaries, and then you have to be willing to commit to them. Another post I saw on social media, and I reference social media a lot on the podcast because it gives great insight to what's going on around us. So one of the big viral occasions is, of course, the very horrific storms in Florida, the hurricane. Now, of that, I, of course, am on the west coast of Canada, very far away from the hurricane. The social media coverage from inside the hurricane, as in the people who were on the ground, who were they were their homes, they were their families, that coverage of that storm was unlike anything I personally had ever experienced on social media. You felt like you were along with the people. It was absolutely crazy. We're talking, and people from all over the world talked after the storm about how the first thing I did was checked in on my Florida families because you needed to know. That is the power of what is going on. It's global reach. So I often lean to social media for what's going on. And one of the posts that I saw about the hurricane was someone who obviously based in Florida, business provider, and he said, well, I could be helping my family prepare for the hurricane. I'm on a sales call. #hustle, #killing it. I'm not so sure. I'm hustle. Is it where my values align? No. I saw the post and I thought, ugh. And I'll be honest, if I was the person on the sales call and saw the post after, I would be like, oh, I just wouldn't. But I guess if that was a huge sales call, closing the biggest deal of the year, you need that money to fix the house after the hurricane comes. Maybe. I guess. We never know what we would do in a situation unless we're in that situation. From the outside, it's not in alignment with my own boundaries. I guess if I felt in this situation, I was that desperate, I probably just wouldn't share it on social media, because as soon as you put something on social media, it opens up for other people's opinions. Boundaries are a funny thing. I am a huge Ryan Serhant fan. And on his most recent reality TV show, Owning Manhattan, which, by the way, even if you don't like reality TV, even if you don't like the real estate shows, this is quite different than like Selling Sunset, very drama-ish vibe. This one really shows some of the challenges of scaling a business. It really gives that insight as to more, not just the real estate side, but the owning, the brokerage side, and the challenges that come with it. He is actually in the very last show, spoiler alert, he is at their big, whatever party. And he gets a call and someone says, I want to do the deal, not a direct quote or anything, but basically, we're going to do the deal, but we got to do it now. And he leaves everyone partying and he slips out the back and he goes and does the deal. Now, I get it. It's on TV and I take that with a grain of salt, but that is who he is. He has always been very authentically, always available. That's his part of his brand. That's part of, you've read any of his books. If you follow his shows, that's who he is. That is in alignment with the boundaries that he has. Now, does every business owner feel the need to leave a holiday or, some kind of party, slip out the back and go close a deal? No. But If you have done those types of things for clients, whether that's allow the scope to change and not charge them, whether that's allow them to call you at 10 p.m. at night, whether that's team member that asks for the pay advance every second week, whether that's the person who gives, requests a day off work with no notice, all of these things. If you have ever just let it happen, the clawing it back is never fun, because it's that next time where you have to say, I can't do that. No, I'm not willing to do that. No, we don't do it that way anymore. The person is like, well, what do you mean? But we always did it like that. Yes, we did, but can't sustain it. Yes, you can answer 1, 2, 3, 4 clients at 10 p.m. at night if you so choose. But when you have 15, 30, 45, 50 clients, how many clients are you dealing with at 10 p.m. at night? Here's the distinction. Here's as a business owner, because this is the tough part. What it takes to get there is not what it takes to stay there. And so often the people who are talking, the coaches, the mindsets, the people standing on stages, the people talking on podcasts, they are all the ones who are saying, 5-hour work week, the Monday to Friday, 9 to 3, the set your boundaries and don't ever let them go, the peace, all of these messaging. The thing is, none of those people did that to get where they are. Gary Vaynerchuk is the example. I was when I say fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, I flew across the country to see him speak on a stage. I arrived, I got settled into my Airbnb, I checked in, did all the things, and then went to bed for hours before the event. And in that 3 hours, I later saw on social, he had been on the streets and hey, I'm here. And it was the middle of the night and there was a whole crowd of people. And I was like, oh my goodness, I missed it. I got that 3 hours of sleep and I missed it. That was him. He promoted the hustle unlike anyone I knew. There was no sleep. There was just hustle. Now, 6, 7 years later, that is not the message he pushes at all because he evolved. The problem is that many successful people were built on the hustle first. Yes, you can shift later, but be mindful that clawing back things from people is hard. So yes, easy to say, absolutely, yes, every lead. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we'll deliver. Yes, but as you grow, you probably won't be able to offer the exact same thing to everybody. And if you have a long business cycle, so you still have those original people, that is a long, unsustainable journey. It's okay. Do the unsustainable. Live it. Grab your success, but just know what you're doing at the time. I often say these are all strategic decisions. So yes, sometimes you say yes, knowing that you're going to go the extra mile, but it needs to always be done in a way that the end with the end in mind. Know that your boundaries will shift over time as your business evolves. When I started my business, I answered every call, every email, every time. Doesn't matter the day, didn't matter the time. I could not be away. In fact, I remember one of the first vacations, it was days away, that I took after I started my business, and it could go wrong. It did. Person who was supposed to be leading was sick, and then this happened, and then that part. And I remember sitting at a restaurant on an iPad. I forgot my laptop. Talk about business owner fail. I didn't bring my laptop. I had a tablet and my phone, and I'm sitting in a restaurant. My family's waiting for me, and I'm like, 1 sec, I just have to get this done. It was absolute chaos. And it was in that moment that I was like, okay, we got to figure this out. We got to get this right. Now, we still have clients that I started with. In fact, I still work for the first client that I ever closed when I started my business. And we have gone through different evolutions. At one point it was 7 days a week, didn't matter anytime. And over time, what we do, it was a very, VIP inclusive package to start. And now we do less. Built the systems to start. And now it's just a matter of just run the systems and provide some support in the background. It is a less, high touch situation. But I also don't give out my personal phone number anymore. Very few people have clients related my personal number. very intentionally, because people always go to like path of least resistance and they want to talk to the top person that they can. So instead of my team member reaching out to them and then them getting the response on something that I am unrelated, so often people would call me, my team member would email them, they would call me and they would say, you had a question for me. And they would start, and I would think, I don't know what question you're talking about because I'm not a part of every single thing. Personal phone, hours, days, scope, and HR are the top 5 things where we start to just, it starts out, for lack of a better terms, a little bit loose and free. And over time, it just isn't. I guess it depends on how fast your business grows. You have 5 employees, really anything under 10, you can still be a little loose and free. Anything, you don't have to get about that. There has to be a little bit more, especially when you have people in set roles. If everybody's away for weeks in August, how does the business function? Those are the types of things. So boundaries in business, super important. We've talked about the difference between boundaries and plan. Plans do evolve and change over time. They are less hard stop. The boundary really should be the hard stop. What you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And I always say everything has a price. Someone will say, is that business for sale? People are like, no. I'm like, well, I guess it depends. Talking about my business specifically, but, grew up riding horses very competitively and was taught that everything is for sale for the right price. And so within reason, within the boundaries, if we said everything is for sale for the right price, I can think of a few things, no matter the price, I would not be selling. Boundaries. What are you willing to do? Yes, it'll shift to less. Your business grows, your boundaries will get tighter. You will do less. You would think it would be the reverse, but it is not. Yes, you'll do more of other things. You'll do more, yes, there's more of other things. But in terms of those things that are really just that I'm willing to do this, I'm willing to not, it will be less. You'll always be clawing back. So be mindful of that. If you're starting your payroll journey, please put in a holdback period. 5 days, ideally. Because everyone says 5 days, that's really long. I don't need 5 days. Okay. Most payroll processors need 2 days. Or you're going to pay more. You can get it to be shorter, but most times you pay more. 2 days. Now, if it's the long weekend, stat holiday, there's 3 days, and now you're at 5. So often, it really complicates things if you have no holdback period. Or you're always making adjustments. I can't tell you what the boundaries you need to keep. I can't tell you if you should reply to a text message at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, or if you shouldn't. You have to decide always, what are you willing to do? And then do that and never resent someone because you chose to not follow your boundary and they didn't appreciate it. Because most likely they didn't even know that boundary existed. They sent a message, you chose to reply. That's on you. No bitterness. Have a good day, guys. Don't forget to click subscribe, comment below, and share the episode with a fellow entrepreneur. If you want to take us on the road, we are available everywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much. See you next time.